Bienvenidos, aloha. Welcome into Sunset Rewind. Finally, Sunset League football in the postseason has come to a close. The Sailors made it all the way to the CIF state tournament, the regionals against Aquinas High School from San Bernardino. They fell on Friday night in San Bernardino, 42-28. Sailors finished the season 7-8. They are CIF Division 6 champions, the Aquinas Falcons. They're going to go on and play Vanden High School from Fairfield up for the 3AA state title on Friday up in Northern California. But Howard, we were at the game. We called the game for Tar Radio. Final game of the season. Playing football in December is always a treat. And we'll hear from Coach Lofthouse here in a second, but it was quite a run from the Sailors. Here's a clip from Coach Lofthouse post-game speech to his team after the loss to the Falcons in San Bernardino.
Nobody's ever been to this point in our school's history. You're still the only ones. Now, for you guys for next season, now you got a new goal, right? You got a new dream. For you guys that are seniors, you guys paved a pathway that I couldn't be more proud of. From where you began as freshmen to where you are now as CIF champions, there is no disgrace, no shame in anything you guys accomplished.
Howard, in the second quarter, Sailors were up 21-7, and we were looking at each other like, okay, we got to make travel plans to get up to Fairfield, up to Northern California, because the Sailors looked like they were about to coast to a blowout. What changed in the second quarter? Because they ended up losing by 2 scores. So what changed for Newport Harbor? What was the turning point of the game for you?
Well, there was a couple of things, but like you said, 21-7, and it wasn't just that the Sailors had a 14-point margin. It was that 3 different receivers had scored. We saw a 50-yard touchdown. If the Sailors wanted to run the ball, they're picking up 5 yards. If they want to throw the ball deep, they had that all day. It just felt like the Sailors were cruising. Everything was going their way. And then about midway through the second quarter, we saw a couple of penalties. We saw a couple of missed assignments. A lack of execution started from the Sailors, and it just felt like it started to snowball. And they had 10 guys going left, 1 guy going right. And it seemed like that happened over and over, and at that same time, Aquinas started to find their footing. Aquinas finally started to get their offense going the way that they planned to, and we saw some big plays. I mean, I said on the broadcast, does Aquinas have any big plays in them? Right away, they throw the ball deep, then they have a 20-something yard touchdown, then they come back, have another quick strike. After halftime, they run the kickoff return back. I mean, it was just so many things started to pile up positively for Aquinas. And conversely, Newport Harbor, they just could not get out of their own way for about a quarter and a half.
Yeah, I think we talked about it on our preview show. One of the keys to this game for both teams was controlling the line of scrimmage, and we knew Aquinas had some real talent on the offensive and defensive line. We saw that on display for them. Their freshman running back, JoJo Solis, 25 carries, over 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. And on the Sailors side, Henry Slater, 14 carries, just 36 yards. The Sailors, they were never able, outside of some plays early in the game, they were never able to really establish the run and control the line of scrimmage like we had seen in their previous 4 playoff victories.
Well, I mean, that's what happens when you get to the 15th game of the season and you're playing a CIF champion in Aquinas, and we know they're a team that's very talented up front, very physical, and JoJo Solis, he's a freshman phenom. He was absolutely amazing. The quarterback ran the ball. They had Fernandez as a receiver. When we saw him come to life, we're like, what the heck? Why hasn't he been getting the ball more? Because he's excellent. So, it's easy to say that Newport Harbor, that they started to implode a little bit, or implode is probably strong. It's probably too strong. They just started to make a couple of mistakes, and when you make those mistakes at a certain time, at the right time, they start to pile up, and it feels like it's getting away from you. But that's because Aquinas is talented. That's because they're good. They execute, and they started picking up. I mean, at one point, it felt like they were getting 7-8 yards a pop running the ball on first down. So when they're doing that, if you're Newport Harbor, do you load the box? And do you try to stop them from going up the gut? Well, then Aquinas goes to the outside. Then they throw the ball. So it was just, like I said, it's a CIF champion team. They were well coached. They were prepared. And Newport Harbor, they ended up turning it on. Towards the end of the third quarter, they had a fourth quarter that they can be proud of, gave themselves a chance to win. Billy Ridley had a big interception. Cash and Hingham had a great touchdown. There was a couple of opportunities. So, yes, it did get ugly in the middle for the Sailors, but they're champions too. They're not just going to lay down. Maybe earlier in the season when Aquinas starts to pile on, the Sailors just pack it up and go home. But not after this playoff run that they've been on. So they were up for the fight. It just took too long to readjust once Aquinas started to get it going in the middle of the game.
Coming full circle, it sort of felt like in that fourth quarter for the Sailors, it felt almost like the first game of the season against Yorba Linda, where the Sailors all of a sudden started clicking in the fourth quarter. It was too little too late. But like you said, Sailors can at least, they're champions, first of all. They got a ring. This is the furthest, as we heard Coach Lofthouse say, this is the furthest a Newport Harbor Sailors football team has ever gone in team history. But the Sailors, we felt the energy because we were posted up calling the game on the Newport Harbor sideline on the away side there in San Bernardino. We felt the energy sucked out of the fans, sucked out of the team, but then it did come back. Cash had that touchdown. Billy Ridley had the biggest interception of his life. And the Sailors, they fought to the very end. I think that's the story of this team this season. In fact, Coach Lofthouse said as much. You asked him this morning on our Zoom call, what's special about this Newport Harbor 2021 Sailors football team? Here's what he had to say.
Well, I think overcoming adversity is the big one. This team, we're going to talk a lot about adversity, and the highs and the lows of the season and what the positions that we were in early in the year, in the middle of the season, and then how we turn it around. And that speaks to ultimately the one thing we do talk a lot about as a program is be gritty, and that's what this team is. This team is the definition of gritty.
Well, that's certainly the characteristic about the 2021 football team from Newport Harbor that's going to stand out. Of course, it's going to be the grittiness. It's going to be, overcoming the obstacles that they faced, in-game obstacles, throughout the playoffs, even at Santa Barbara. Well, even if you go back to Sunny Hills, big lead early, Sunny Hills comes back, ties it up. At Santa Barbara, a couple of early turnovers. It's a tie game early in the first half. Against Dominguez, you're down 2 scores. Against Aquinas, you're down 3 scores. So there was adversity the whole time, and this is a team that you have to be proud of because they found a way to, once it does, even in this game, we're talking about the self-inflicted wounds started to pile up, but then what happened? The Sailors found a way to correct it. Sailors found a way to relax, found a way to execute, to get back to what they do, and they gave themselves a chance to be in the game at the end. So this is a team that's going to be remembered for overcoming obstacles, overcoming adversity. A.J. Gutron Moore from third string to championship quarterback, that's a obstacle, that's adversity built in. And it just
makes string to ring. That's what I saw AJ's dad at the game, and the sweatshirt said from third string to ring. So there's that story right there.
Right. That situation is a microcosm of the whole season, which is we're going to find a way to overcome. We're going to stick with it. And at the end, if everything goes the way it's supposed to, we'll be crowned as champions. And that's what happened for the Sailors. So it was a heck of a season.
Yeah, exactly. So many people to be proud of, so many people to thank really for you and I doing the Sailors broadcast, covering the team for Sunset Rewind. We didn't expect to be doing playoff episodes, recaps, and previews all the way into December. And like you said, A.J. Gutron Moore, microcosm of the team. Josiah Lamarque, 10 postseason touchdowns. Cash and Henjum had an amazing postseason. The offensive and defensive lines finally lived up to their potential in the postseason. The defense got the credit they deserved. So many cool storylines that came to life over these final 5 games of a 15-game season where really could have ended 3-7. Could have been a 10-game season and over. Ended up going 15 games. And like you said, on our CIF Division 6 championship recap show, a program-changing win, a life-changing win for Coach Lofthouse and these kids, and we'll preview next season. We'll do an overarching season recap, and we'll touch on some things to look for, a way too early season preview, but I'm excited about the future for Sailors football.
Yeah, you got to be excited. There was great senior leadership on this 2021 football team, but there was also a lot of underclassmen who were contributors, a lot of young guys, a lot of guys that are going to come back next season having 15 games under their belt from 2021. They're going to feel like veterans. Guys like Henry Slater, Josiah Lamarque is already a veteran. Just a ton of young guys out there. So it's going to be fun to watch next year.
As we wrap up this final recap show from the 2021 season, I also got to give a big shout out to our reporter, Taryn Rodriguez, who took over covering the Sailors in the postseason at Taryn Rodriguez 1 on Twitter, and he just did an amazing job for us. So I want to make sure he gets his due on this final recap show. He just, couldn't have asked for a better reporter covering the Sailors this year.
Absolutely. Taryn certainly held it down. There was a whole crew involved. CJ here on the production side for us, everybody, all the coaches, Newport Harbor for giving us the access so we could cover the team and be along for the ride. And I'm so happy that the first year of Sunset Rewind was a CIF championship year for the Sunset League. It couldn't have worked out better.
Absolutely. Well, Howard, I know we got more content coming out over the offseason, so stay tuned for that. Follow us on social media at sunset_rewind. Go to our website, sunsetrewind.com. Stay tuned because we got stuff coming this offseason. We thank you for riding along with us from our first episodes back in the summer to all the way now in December, recap episode, and there's more to come. So big shout out to everybody who followed along throughout the Sunset League season. It's going to be a fun offseason. Lots to talk about for all the players, parents, and coaches in the Sunset League. From my broadcast partner, Howard Kroom. This is Alex Crawford saying, from the 405 to PCH, from Saddleback to the Pacific Ocean, you've been watching Sunset Rewind. Thanks for tuning in.